It was a typical Friday night. A group of 4 friends, Emma, Max, Sophie, and Lucas, gathered at Emma's place for their weekly movie night. After scrolling through countless horror films, they came across a title they had never seen before, MELHOR FILME DE Terror Suspense 2020. The cover was unsettling, a grainy black and white image of a broken film reel and a pair of eyes staring back at them, filled with an unexplainable dread. "What's this? Looks like some underground indie movie," Max said, intrigued. "I've never heard of it before," Emma replied, "but it's rated as the best horror movie of 2020. Let's watch it." Without much thought, they hit play. The film began with shaky footage of an empty, desolate town. The camera wandered through narrow streets lined with decaying houses. A soft, eerie hum played in the background, setting the tone for the unsettling events to come. The first half-hour passed in silence. The friends sat engrossed, but something felt off. The dialogue was fragmented, and the characters seemed unnervingly familiar, like versions of people they knew, but twisted and distorted. "Is it just me? Or does that guy look like you, Lucas?" Sophie whispered, her voice barely audible. Lucas leaned closer, his face pale. The character on screen was walking down a dimly lit alley, his movements identical to Lucas's own. Then, the character stopped, turned to face the camera, and spoke. The voice was garbled, but Lucas's name came through, clear as day. The room fell silent. "Did he just say your name?" Emma asked, her voice shaking. Lucas shrugged it off nervously. "It's probably just a coincidence. Maybe we should just turn it off." But Max was already sucked in. "No way. This is getting good. Let's see where it goes." The movie continued, and things only got stranger. As the camera moved through darkened rooms and desolate fields, the environment on screen began to look more and more like Emma's neighborhood. The same cracked pavement, the same old, rusted street lamp outside her house. Suddenly, the camera panned to a house, Emma's house. There was no mistaking it. The same red door, the same ivy creeping up the brick walls. On the screen, the lights inside the house flickered as the camera zoomed in closer, moving up the stairs, closer to the living room where they were all sitting. "What the hell?" Emma whispered, her heart racing. They watched, frozen in fear, as the camera focused on a window. Through it, they could see themselves, sitting on the couch, watching the film. The reflection on screen was eerie. Everything was the same, down to the faint flicker of the television. Except for one thing. A shadowy figure stood behind them, watching from the doorway. Max shot up from his seat, whipping around to check the doorway. It was empty. "Okay, this is seriously freaking me out." "Turn it off, Emma," Lucas pleaded. "This isn't right." But as Emma reached for the remote, the television flickered, and the remote went dead in her hand. The screen dimmed, showing only static, before a voice, low and distorted, whispered through the speakers. "You shouldn't have watched this." A loud crash came from upstairs, followed by the sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps that echoed down the hall. Panic surged through the group as they huddled together. Sophie's hand trembled as she clutched her phone, trying to dial for help, but the screen was frozen. Suddenly, the lights in the house went out. Darkness swallowed the room, leaving only the glow of the static on the TV to illuminate their terrified faces. "I don't like this. What the hell is happening?" Sophie whispered, her voice quivering with fear. Before anyone could answer, the static on the screen flickered again. The shadowy figure that had been standing behind them in the reflection was now visible on the screen. It moved closer, its form distorted and dark, with hollow eyes fixed on the group. The screen cut to black. In the silence, the footsteps from upstairs grew louder, descending the stairs, slowly but deliberately. Lucas, breathing heavily, grabbed a kitchen knife from the table. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice strained with terror. The footsteps stopped just outside the living room door. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the door creaked open. No one moved. Their breaths hitched in their throats, hearts pounding so loud it felt like the whole house was shaking with fear. "Who's there?" Max demanded, his voice breaking. A cold gust of air rushed into the room, and the door swung fully open. Standing there was the figure from the screen, its face a blur, like a glitch in reality. It stood impossibly still, staring at them with unseen eyes, as if studying its prey. Max stepped forward, the tension unbearable. "This isn't real," he shouted, trying to convince himself. "It's just a damn movie." But the figure moved, lunging forward with unnatural speed. The group scattered, screaming in terror. The room descended into chaos as the shadowy figure pursued them, its inhuman movements filling the space with dread. Lucas slashed at it with the knife, but it passed right through the figure, as if it were made of smoke. "We need to get out of here," Sophie cried, scrambling toward the door. They ran out into the street, their breaths visible in the cold night air, but something was wrong. The street was deserted. No cars, no people, only the hollow wind whistling through the empty neighborhood. The houses, once familiar, now looked decayed and abandoned, as if they had been that way for years. "This can't be real," Emma gasped. "We were just in my house. What's happening?" The answer came from the TV in Emma's living room, which flickered back to life, the distorted voice whispering once more, "You are part of the film now." As they stood in the middle of the street, the darkness around them grew thicker, swallowing the stars and moon. One by one, they vanished into the blackness, their screams cut short, their presence erased from reality, forgotten, just like the movie that had brought them there. And the TV in Emma's house continued to play, waiting for its next audience.